Welcome to the People Dividend podcast. I'm your host, Mike Horne, and today we're diving into the art of leadership, collaboration, and creating meaningful change in organizations. Our guest today is Kirstin Austin, founder of Meadow Consulting LLC, and a leader with a passion for helping organizations navigate complex challenges and achieve sustainable success. Kirstin has worked on large-scale, impactful projects and brings a wealth of experience in fostering collaboration and alignment within teams. Kirstin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
And for all of those who have been loyal followers, Kirstin was a guest in a previous season, and I found her story so intriguing that I just couldn't wait to have her back. I'd encourage everyone to go and look at her LinkedIn profile. This is an accomplished learning executive who's worked in navigated and led in some very complex circumstances. So fortunate to have her here. But let's start with your story, Kirstin. What inspired you to found Meadow Consulting, and where's this journey headed?
Sure. And I think I'm going to start with a theme of connection. I'll weave that throughout. And I'll start by saying that I think we probably first met, 30 years ago, do you think? Probably. Yes. And maintaining connections is so important. So I'll just start with and thanking you for being such a great colleague over those many years. Maybe it was 25, but some amount of time.
One of my colleagues says it's 40 years.
Anyway. It's great to maintain this relationship. So what inspired me to just found Meadow Consulting LLC is something along this lines of connections and bringing the human to work. So throughout my career, I've been in private sector and government. What's been really important to me is one, being true to myself and my own values, which can take a long time to really sort out for yourself. For those early in your journey, give yourself grace, give your time to really find out who you are. And then making sure I could live out the value of being there for people, helping them develop, make sure people being treated respectfully, and then helping all of that come together to support the mission of the organization that I'm working with. So one of my themes has always been, how do we support the achievement of mission? You've got to support it and achieve it through people. People want to be part of something bigger. They want to be part of mission. If you treat them respectfully, you give them the tools, you develop them, they'll be there for you and help you meet the mission. So Meadow Consulting is a continuation of my work in large organizations where I was doing that internal, where I would like to do it now externally to consult with what works. How do you reach people? How do you support people? And how do you make all that align to achieve your mission?
It's such an interesting journey, thinking about the sense of connection. When we met in Washington, D.C., I believe, or somewhere around that part of the United States, you and a colleague were recent graduates of what was then a well-regarded, maybe still is, instructional systems design program, and established a consultancy that was built on, well, you tell us, and how that led to thinking about larger and larger systems.
Yes. So yes, my background is as an instructional designer, which has really served me in leading learning organizations because I understand what all those instructional designers and instructional systems specialists are going through to try to, develop and implement and maintain effective programs. So we started doing consulting for both government and private sector, trying to bring the techniques that make impactful learning and development with measurable results that you can see that people have been enabled through the increase in their skills, knowledge, and abilities to perform whatever their job is that supports the mission. So we started doing that. And I discovered over my years in consulting that I loved meeting all the people. I loved learning about all the different organizations, but I felt this need to be able to be part of something larger and really see it through. Because when you're consulting, you usually are seeing inside of organizations for shorter periods of time. It could be anywhere from 2 months to maybe a couple of years, but then you're gone. So, and also I felt the call to public service. I had a long history in my family of public service. I want to give a shout out to my grandma who moved to Washington, D.C. to work for the government 100 years ago.
My gracious.
So there's a long tradition. So I joined government service. So I joined a rather large organization, the Department of Defense. And I started being able to see what it's like to implement change, learning and development programs within such large organizations. And then I did a career in public service, which I'm very grateful to being able to have that time to serve the American taxpayer.
Well, let's think about navigating some complex challenges, which certainly present in the federal service that you led in learning and development. But let's just talk about AI right now. It is changing the way I think we learn, the way we acquire knowledge, the speed at which we learn. It's impacting coaching. I haven't seen it yet impact my organization development consulting. But coaching, I think there's a big wave ahead. What goes with learning and development and how you think about it in large systems, Kirstin Austin?
Yeah. So I think part of the challenge right now is what kind of access do people have to AI?
Hmm.
Because in some cases, people will have, depending on the size of their organization, they may have access just to something like ChatGPT or name the other ones, that you can get. Maybe you get it for free, or maybe you just pay a small amount per month. It is hard to work with those undifferentiated systems to really create good instructional materials. What's working much better, and I've seen demos of this, is organizations that are able to take those AIs and create a customized prompt-based program overlaid on top of the AI that will make sure it's shepherding it in the right direction. So the ones I've seen that are effective are they'll have all the prompts set up so you can input your objectives. You can input like raw data, which would be maybe policy statements, maybe old trainings, whatever it is. And then you can very specifically tell it what you need it to do. Now, everything has to be thoroughly scrubbed with a subject matter expert and an instructional design expert. Now, I would think an individual person, like if you're in a small company or even a large company that has a small training and you can't purchase like a customized training AI system, or you don't have the ability yet to customize it for yourself, you can do things like make yourself some good presentation slides or some limited outlines. Staying smaller is much more impactful, because when you try to give these undifferentiated systems large amount of instructions, they just go all over the place. And they'll also, the funniest thing that I've discovered that they'll do is that the AI will promise you it can do something, and then it can't do it. So
Mm.
I was just working, because I keep experimenting with it. It'll tell you things like, would you like me to insert a graphic that illustrates, whatever your topic was?
Mhm.
In this case,
Right.
I was doing something on the native species of oaks on the East Coast. Mike knows I love plants and flowers.
Right.
And it would say, let me make you this graphic. It made me a beautiful graphic that illustrated all the leaf shapes. And I said, okay. And then it said, would you like me to put it in your document that we were making together, me through prompts? And I said, yes. And then it wouldn't make it, and it wouldn't make it. And finally I go, why haven't you made this? Like, it's like you're talking to your, an intern. And it finally said, well, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have told you I could make it because I can't pull it in.
Oh my goodness.
So that's why I'm saying you're going to have to invest in getting something customized that has the prompts built in so that you can keep steering the AI to do what you need, or do it in very small chunks.
I read an article on Medium recently, and it said that if you're just typing in a question into your large language model, software, whatever it is, you're getting an average response, sort of an, undifferentiated, even though it might be written well and sound good and
Yeah.
all that. So this writer said you have to put in, give me 5 with a probability ranking of, in rank order. And you get a much more diverse array of ideas. So yeah, it's so much about the prompt engineering that happens in this regard.
It is so much about the prompt engineering. Absolutely. And you just have to, I mean, if you just go in and practice, and you'll discover it on your own. And I'm sure there's things you can take that are free, on YouTube or someplace. If you belong to LinkedIn or whoever, you could take some, but that prompt engineering is so important. The other thing I'd say to work out for, even if you're really good at the prompt engineering, is I had read someplace, some author was like, watch out for the mind numbing outputs. And what they meant was they'll write something that like has facts in it that maybe you wanted, but it's written with such blandness that it just makes your mind go numb. And if you're in learning and development, you don't want people to encounter your materials and be like, that was the most boring, bland thing I ever read. You need to have humans that go back in and punch it up. Now, not that you couldn't train it to get better and better. You could. but there are still limitations, but there's great promise. The promise I see for learning and development is you could get drafts done so much faster, have it import like your old training materials or your policy documents or whatever, like all that raw material, have it work with that, is that you'll get past some of those initial hurdles so much faster. It'll help you with idea generation. And then you, as an instructional specialist and the subject matter expert, can use all that for fodder. Please bring your creativity. That's what you're needed for. And then the SME to check the facts, that it's actually training people on what you need them to be trained on.
So interesting and sad. As a full-time university professor, chair of a department, one of the things that's so frustrating now is to see papers where, in the middle or the end of the paragraph, it says, insert your idea here. Well, did you use some sort of large language model to help you write this? And, so it's
I
a
think
challenge
so.
because it's
Yeah,
all
it's
about,
down.
I think, the way we learn. And I mean, for you, leadership of learning as a chief learning officer is a recurring theme in your work, or has been a recurring theme in your work.
Yeah.
So in your experience as a chief learning officer of, several complex organizations, as you described, what makes for a great chief learning officer in today's environment?
Hmm. I think that we do need to consider basic human attributes that you need to be a good leader. But I'll just start. Of course, you've got to stay up to date in your field. So that would be like what we were just discussing about
Right.
how is AI being used in learning and development, and how is it changing the business side that you're serving. You have to know what's going on for your business. The business side that you serve as a chief learning officer, all those people you're supporting, they're going through the hurricane as well, about how are we going to use AI and how can you support them. So absolutely, you have to stay up to date with that. But who is going to have to use this AI? It's all those workers who, in the business unit side, they're being told, you're going to have to start doing this. And they're like, I don't know how to do that. And then who's going to have to do it? It's all the humans. So I still believe it's always been a requirement you stay up on the technical changes that are going on in our organization, but you still have to focus on, how are you a good leader? Are you listening and truly taking in the concerns of your business partners that you need to serve? Are you listening and truly taking in the concerns of your staff and your team? Perhaps you outsource some of it. Are you listening to your vendors that you're using? What's new that they're offering? What are they doing? Listening is so important, but it's not just listening, it's taking it in and really integrate. Like, you got to be your own large language model. You got to integrate what you heard. And you want to, I think people need to expand their data collection. Make sure you are taking in lots of points of view. So the business unit, what's going on outside, your own staff, you've got to take in lots of different data, and you have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to quickly adapt. Then treating people right, respecting them, treating learners respectfully, treating your employees respectfully. That's how you get the discretionary energy from them. If they feel respected and treated right, they will give you that extra energy they have to take their performance to the next level. So those things are basic. They haven't changed, but you got to remind yourself to do them, because we're all being swept up in a hurricane of technological change.
Yes, I think it's so true. I think about the values of dignity, kindness, respect is foundational. Some people call it, I don't know all about all this terminology, that we're at the fifth industrial state or the fifth industrial
Mm-hmm.
revolution. But for me, the trends that I see are virtually the shortening of the work week into a 4-day work week. People, the increased nature of hybrid work. Also, people having a different sense of organization today because of the gig economy, the rise of the gig economy, and people putting together jobs in multiple ways, whether they're job stacking, which has become a phenomenon, right? Where people don't tell their employers that they have 3 or 4 jobs that they're doing all at the same time because of AI or automation, where they're
Yeah.
able to answer 20 emails at the beginning of every day because they have AI assistants. There's all this kind of stuff that's going on. So what I call for in the People Dividend is that a return to humanistic values is what differentiates leadership at this point. It's
Yes.
what attracts people to organizations. And I think, as you describe it, Kirstin, you talk about it as engagement, discretionary effort. But I think those things, those values are the key to creating meaningful and sustainable change within organizations. And what advice would you give to leaders looking to make a lasting impact in their organizations?
This is it's such a complex question because of all the stuff that is going on that we just discussed. But
Right.
I really like the way you're going back to the basic humanistic values.
Hmm.
I think that is how you create lasting change. People need to feel heard. For example, one of the best pieces of feedback I've gotten when I've been a senior leader in large organizations is when people say, you as a leader have been so valuable because you would listen to our proposal, our concern, whatever it was. And then we could see how you were making your decision and how we were to move out. So most people understand that every idea they have is not going to be accepted or implemented, but they want to be heard and they want to see how you're making your decisions. And then they can get behind you and move out with you. What drives people crazy if they feel that no input is accepted, they're not heard. Why should they get on board? Why? Why should they get on board if they're never heard? And if it's not considered, and if the decision making isn't as transparent as it can be, obviously it can't be always completely. If this decision making has no transparency, everything seems capricious and arbitrary, you will not get the buy-in you need for lasting change. So by letting people see the decision making process, giving them a role, telling them why or why not you could do X or Y, telling them when you might be able to circle back to something that you can't do right now. That's one of the main things I always teach my teams is if you can't get your idea approved right now, keep it in your back pocket, in your metaphorical back pocket. It could come around. You might be able to do it. So that keeps people motivated and committed to the change. But again and again, I would receive the feedback and I'd see it in my results. I'd get the feedback from other senior leaders. I'd say, you made huge change and got everybody to go along with it because you listened to people, you made the decision making transparent, you didn't dilly dally I talked about grandma, she would have said that, didn't dilly dally and not make a decision, which also drives people crazy. You moved out, people could get aligned and move on.
Yeah, so true, right? I think it's how do we bring our adult selves, as one of my mentors would have described. How do we bring our adult selves to the workplace? This has been such an insightful conversation. And before we wrap up, I have maybe two questions. First one, and this will be in the show notes, but where can our listeners learn more about your work and connect with you? And Kirsten, where can people learn more?
Yes. So the best ways to learn more about me is one is my LinkedIn page, which is under my name, which you can see here. And I guess maybe in the show notes, you could put the actual link, but it is under Kirstin Austin. You'll find me and it will
Be
say
there.
Meadow Consulting. And then, you can also email me at kaustinmeadowllc at outlook.com, but I'm sure you'll put that in. Those are the best ways to reach me. And I encourage you to visit my LinkedIn page because now I'm kind of building up a library of about 5-minute videos that are on some of these same topics or that are on instructional design or leadership and how to make those impactful. So I invite you to look at those and to look through, but you can always message me on there if you'd like to learn more or you'd like to chat.
Well, I can't wait to check out some of that long form video. I mean, that sounds super. So it's really been such an insightful conversation, thinking about the past, discussing how to accomplish it in the now and what technology, holds for the future in the learning and development and change areas. Before we wrap up, though, here we are. We're ending the first quarter of 2026. What's one piece of advice you'd give to our listeners to improve their leadership or create more alignment within their teams? Topics that we've touched on today, I believe.
Yeah. So I would say two things. One, stay connected to your teams, to your colleagues, and to the business units you're serving. And two, model and communicate on your team's role in fulfilling mission. They need to hear it over and over and over, and they need to see you living it. If you live it and you model it and you communicate on it, they will feel inspired and be willing to really give that effort to move your business forward.
That's great. I really appreciate that advice and guidance for the remainder of 2026. It's been so great to reconnect with my colleague, Kirstin Austin. I appreciate, Kirsten, that you've shared your wisdom, your experience today on the People Dividend. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning into the People Dividend podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who could use a fresh perspective on leadership and collaboration. And Kirsten, thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Until the next episode again, stay well.